Piecing together the perfect Swedish adventure is not easy, but luckily there's a manual out now. And I've heard that real men don't read manuals, so I'm going to read it for you. So let's head over to the office. So Sweden is a fantastic place for adventure riding, and we now have this, the Swedish Adventure Assembly Manual, and it will prepare you for the trip and get every part in the right place and make the most out of your adventure. And in the end you'll be able to ADV like a Swede. Let's get started. Let's have a look. Of course, starts with ABBA, Spotify, other Swedish companies, Stegra.io, and Sweden. So why go to Sweden in the first place? Well, if you want those spectacular, eye-popping views while standing in line with tourists draining your wallet, you should go a little bit more west to our neighboring country. I'm sure Thomas will take good care of you. And Sweden is more of an introvert adventure, actually, where you have these vast forest regions with over 100,000 lakes and endless kilometers of gravel roads. Sitting by the campfire, fishing, and riding with your bike in nature, in wilderness. That is more of what Sweden has to offer. And you can be completely free in nature, camping where you want, no toll roads, not so much people everywhere, and be in nature on your bike. But that comes with responsibilities that we will go through in this video. So let's look at the map so I can show you about the regions and stuff. So here's Sweden. It's a very long country. It's 1,600 kilometers from end to end. Usually come by ferries to Nynäshamn or Karlskrona, or over the bridge to Malmö, ferry to Gothenburg. We also have ferries from Finland over here. I like to divide Sweden into three main areas, which is the southern part, which is the most densely populated area, where you have all the largest cities. All the properties are quite small because there's a lot of people living here. Amazing riding if you stay away from the big cities and the summer house areas. There are really nice wilderness feeling and endless gravel roads around here. And then I draw a line over the city of Östersund. This middle region is perhaps my favorite region because we have Värmland down here to Dalarna, Jämtland, Härjedalen. Also, it's more of a motorsport culture up here. You have endless gravel and forest roads and thousands of lakes to enjoy. And the properties are bigger. And the more north you get, like up here in the most northern region, the forest is mainly owned by state-owned companies. So there are huge areas here, but also many of the gravel roads get much more highway-like, still gravel, but much larger gravel roads for the timber trucks and everything. The coastline is a lot of highway. You also have the mountainous area here with a lot of national parks, so there aren't many roads to go there. Many of the roads just go straight into Norway from here. So you would stay in between those areas to get a great ride. Also, Tet goes up from south here and up to between the lakes. Where we are here is a fantastic area to ride. It's a bit sandy, but still for beginners. And then it goes up through Sweden. So let's look at the road network in Sweden and how that works. You can ride Trans-Euro Trail, of course, and just forget about everything. But understanding how it works in Sweden makes it easier for you to find your own trails and make your own adventure, because you don't perhaps always stay on the 10. And let's start by saying that off-road in Sweden is completely forbidden. You cannot go off-road, but that means you cannot go off the road. You cannot ride your bike in plain nature where there aren't any roads. You have to stay on a road. And this guide to the road network will get you as close as possible. Sweden is not a Romaniac's adventure. It's quite easy, but just a pleasure riding. So let's dive into that. So now we're in stegra.io, my preferred planning tool, especially for Sweden because it has features that is not available in other route planning apps. So first of all, we have the boring highways going through from Stockholm and in between here. And we tend to avoid those. The yellow lines are smaller asphalt roads. But what we're after is the small gravel roads, and we can highlight them here. So the blue lines here are all gravel roads. And you can see there are small farms and houses, and they need to go to their places. They need to maintain their forests and everything. So it's a huge network of gravel roads, and that what's make Sweden so special. So we cannot count the kilometers of gravel roads here. Let's head over to the adventure map. In Stegra. It shows it like this. We also, besides these blue lines, we have dashed lines. And these are quite fun riding, but they also just go out and stop somewhere. And that's the problem with planning manually. These roads, the dashed lines, they are sort of small maintenance roads for the foresters and people who work and live here. So as adventure riders, we love to ride on the smallest paths possible often. And it can be a bit tricky because the road you're going on, because of the terrain driving law, the road that you go on must be used for motor traffic. And you start perhaps on an asphalt road, then you get on a quite large gravel road, all is okay. And then you end up on a 2-track, smaller road, which seems to become smaller and smaller still. And suddenly you will end up on a single trail. So it's not just because it's a road at one point doesn't mean that it leads to pretty much nowhere. So you have to reconsider. And as long as you feel that you're on a road meant for motor vehicles and there's no forbidden signs or closed gates, you're okay to go there. And these small roads are always maintained by some private farmer somewhere. That's his road, and sometimes it leads up into their barbecue section in their backyard. So be aware, as long as it's deep in the forest and away from people and horses and everything, no problem. But be cautious of getting into the living room of someone's house if you just ride on. And then we have freedom in Scandinavia. Scandinavian freedom, not American freedom. We have the freedom to roam on any land, even if it's a property of someone else, as long as it's not farm fields or living areas. I'm talking nature here. You can go into any wood, you can swim in any sea and roam freely. And you can pitch your tent in the forest wherever you want, at least for one night. You can make a fire pretty much anywhere you want, if you know how to properly make and secure a fire. But there's an app also link in description, and I will show it later, where you can see the Swedish fire hazard levels, and there are different rules for different times in the year and situations. So you need to check that before you make a fire. You can fish in any little lake that you find. There's an app for that also. Most small lakes have a little fee that you have to pay. You can gather firewood and chop the pieces up and make your fire, but you cannot chop living trees down. You can use firewood that you find on the ground. So no chop either trees. If you're wild camping, you have a little plastic bag or something, you gather everything in the trash bag, bring it with you on your bike and find a trash bin somewhere. Always when leaving, turn around, look at the site. Does it look spotless? And that's how you want to leave it. If you're at a normal camping, of course, they have trash bins everywhere. But we also have this thing with shelters in Sweden. We have almost 4,000 shelters spread out through Sweden in nature that are meant to make a little fire. There's a wind shelter, and even up to cabins, real small cottages, houses with a little kitchen and everything that are completely free. If there's no one there, you can use it. But you don't stay a week. It's the same there. You stay a night and then move on. And you find them on the shelter map, also link in description. And that's how I normally ride around Sweden. I use Stegra to find a good route, and I try to stay every night by finding a shelter somewhere, because it's close to free wild camping, but it has this little fireplace, and it's usually by a lake somewhere and so on. That's my recommendation. So I do get questions quite a lot on what wild animals we have here. Are there any dangerous ones? Well, we have bears, but if you see a bear, you're one of the lucky ones, because in Sweden they're not used to people. They are very shy, and since you're going on a motorbike on roads, there's a very little chance that you will see one, because they will see you first and leave. Camping, there's no need to hang your food bags in the trees or anything. Don't worry about bears. And then wolves. We have wolves in all of Sweden. I see reports of people seeing a wolf and so on, but it's nothing to be afraid of. I haven't met one ever, and if I saw one, that would be cool. No incidents or anything happened. So we do have potentially scary animals, bears and wolves, but those are not the ones that you need to be scared of. One of the dangerous animals in Sweden are the deers, because they rush out from the side of the road, and they always try to go in front of your bike instead of be smart and wait a little and let them pass. They are aiming for the front of your bike, shooting like torpedoes. So yeah, look out for deers. Same thing with hares. They also shoot out from the side, but yeah, I think you will see quite a few of those in here. And wild boars is an increasing number of wild boars in Sweden. You can see them in packs crossing the road and so on, but also nothing really to be scared of. Moose, also, you're happy if you see a moose. I hope you do. They're quite common, and they're majestic vision to see them. Of course, not dangerous at all. Reindeer, you start seeing them in the northern half of Sweden, I would say. They should be called road deers, because they usually block the whole road and with not a hurry in the world, so they can be quite hard to pass unless they let you pass. Now, the most annoying little critter in Sweden is a mosquito, or mosquitoes in millions. That season starts about in June, I would say, and lasts throughout summer until end of August perhaps. Different regions, but roughly. There can be a lot of mosquitoes because we have all these 100,000 of lakes and also swamps and everything. Lots of water, which the mosquitoes love and need, and that's why they love Sweden. So bring repellent, or also you can use the Thermacell. It actually works. Been using it quite a lot, and it does work. It keeps a 20 square meter area free of mosquitoes. So that's a tip if you're coming to Sweden. And then also to be warned about, we have the blondes. They can be quite seductive, but know that they are dangerous. Actually, my father was born in Austria, raised, and in 1968 he came to Sweden. He met one of these blondes and he never came back. So let that be a warning to you. Language. I would say everyone in Sweden speaks English. So if you speak English, you will not have any problems. Even older people speak English. So we're very good at that. And for payment, just bring your payment card of MasterCard, Visa or something like that. We're very digital, hardly use cash anymore here. But we have also these mobile payments, which if you're from a different country, you may not have that. So you can have some cash on you if you meet some small merchant or something like that. But usually everyone will take your credit card as payment. And for the campfire, we need beer or whiskey or whatever gets you going. And we do have an alcohol monopoly in Sweden called Systembolaget. There is a special shop only for alcohol, and it's one in almost every reasonably sized town. It's usually open to 6 or 7 weekdays, and only open on Saturdays until approximately 3, but there are local variants there. So you need to go there to restock real beer. Supermarkets, which are very generous with the open hours and so on in Sweden. Also weekends, Saturdays, Sundays. You can buy beer there, but the maximum percentage is 3.5. Otherwise you have to go to. So that's plan B. So find a Systembolaget if you need a beer or something. And food you need to eat, even if you feel that you're in the middle of the wilderness, you're usually not, because it's not far to the nearest town that you can go in and restock from a supermarket or eat at a restaurant or something like that. What I recommend is especially when you go up north, there's more of that, but in the supermarket there's usually a small section with local produce, which you can also buy from the small places and shops that you ride by out on the countryside. But you can find them in the superstores also. The smoked moose and deer and sausages and meat stuff, which is really nice. My favorite with a beer around the campfire is a smoked deer heart. It's salty, smoky, and tastes perfect, especially with a beer. So you need to try that. And then lastly, just petrol. The way to fill up a vehicle in different countries differ. Here you don't talk to anyone really. You just ride up to the fuel station, blip or insert your card, fill it yourself, and then you leave. So nothing special there. So that was a lot of information, but if you're planning a trip or want to come to Sweden, I think you would have watched it all, because I thought it could be helpful. And if you thought it was helpful, please subscribe and like and all that. Comment if I missed anything. So now just pack up, go to Sweden and ride into the wilderness and get to know yourself a bit. Be with your own little mind for a while. Thank you so much. See you in the next one. Cheers.